Why do bad things happen to good people? So this is one of the deepest questions that anyone can really ask when we're coming to theology or philosophy. And I think it's really important that we look at the other side of the coin here, which is why are good things happening to bad people? I mean, if we're going to look at one side, we have to look at the other. We have many different ways of looking at this. The first and most basic and fundamental one is that life is just not fair. We can look at it from that perspective. Life is not fair, things just happen, and this is more of an atheistic approach, meaning that people who are not really in tune with their spiritualism or who have not adapted a belief in a God per se, this is going to be the way that you can justify this, which is that life is just happenstance and it's not fair. Then have the next kind of narrative, which is a little bit more common, which is that God works in mysterious ways. This idea that things are happening, we don't understand why they're happening, but they're happening for the right reason. We just have to trust that the things that are happening to us are happening for a reason. We don't understand it, but it's the way that things should be. And this we're going to find amongst most of the world's religions, especially the ones coming from Abraham, which is going to be Catholicism, Judaism, and Islam. But these answers both lack the core value of responsibility, and they insinuate that life is beyond our control, that the good and the bad are not determined by us, but through relativity or a higher power, something external. The other side one could postulate is that of karma, typically associated with reincarnation, a reverberation of our past, meaning that whatever's happening to us in this particular life could be an effect from a previous life where we may have done certain things that are now causing our life this time to either be good or bad. And this is a pretty common narrative amongst Hindus and Buddhists, and it's definitely better so far because here we're taking some responsibility. We're saying that the things that are occurring in our lives are potentially due to actions we've taken, maybe even in this life, but maybe even in a past life. We could also say that good and bad experiences are of a teaching nature, that they're actually nurturing us and growing us, that the good teach us of peace and enjoyment, while the bad teach us about life and the repercussions for not doing the right things in life. If we approach experience willing to learn, eager to learn, then the good and the bad will be weighted by success and failure. If the bad makes us good, is it really bad? And if the good leads us to bad, was it really good? This is the consciousness of the spiritualist, where we are looking at things from the perspective of what is the actual result of something. And let me just kind of dive just a little bit deeper into this concept, which is that if things are going really great in your life and you don't feel the pressure or the urgency to make positive changes in your life, you might allow yourself to backslide a little bit. Maybe you start to do things a little bit more lackadaisically. Maybe you start to drink or do drugs or smoking. I don't need to be on my best behavior because things are good. There's nothing pushing me towards being better. In those periods of time, if we backslide during the good periods of time, was that really good for us? And that's the question that I want us to really ask, is if the good times in our life where there isn't chaos, where there isn't pain or suffering, if those times we're not using them to our advantage, instead we're using them to become lackadaisical, were they really good? And then if the bad times that are occurring in our lives, where there is chaos, where there is pain and suffering, where there is urgency to make a change, if that leads us into a better place, if that grows us spiritually, then was it ever really bad? Very philosophical question, but at the same time, if you look at the stew, what we're winding up with is that, good could lead us to bad and bad could lead us to good. It really just depends on perspective. But we could further speculate, and we could even say that the pain and the suffering, the bad times in my life are taken on by me because I am capable of handling that I have come to this world to handle the difficulties, to handle the pain and the suffering because others cannot. And so I do it for my brothers and my sisters, that when I suffer for everybody. And this is Christ consciousness. This is the real idea behind Christ. Most people think that Christ came and died on the cross as a symbol of Mashiach, of the Messiah, which again, I'm not here to debate that, but what I'm saying is that Christ definitely, the story of Christ definitely paints us a picture that a person can come to this world and bear the burdens for everybody if they're willing to make that sacrifice. Now, I think some people maybe choose that, karmically speaking, some people might choose that before they come into this world, if we're going to go into the vast array of spiritual ideas that are out there. But maybe while you're here, you choose that. You say, you know what, I want to take the pain for, I mean, again, you can easily associate it to someone that you love, like, God forbid a million times, your child is suffering, right? What good parent isn't going to have that thought, God, please let me take that pain from their child? And as you move up the spiritual ladder, you're going to start to see people as brothers and sisters. You're going to start to care on a much deeper level. You're going to love people for no reason. And when you start entering that headspace, it becomes more probable that you'd be willing to take on pain and suffering for all of those around you who cannot do it themselves, who maybe don't have the strength to handle the real darkness of this world. And so if you're the type of person that has the ability to handle the darkness, to combat the darkness, you might want to take on some of that for the people around you. There are many other answers to this paradox. We could go on and on and on forever, but I find these answers to be sufficient, with significance on the thinking of the spiritualist, as it is relatable and achievable. We can definitely look at things when they're bad and say, you know what, I can grow here, I can learn here, I can become wise, I can take the experience of this bad moment and turn it into something that's actually quite beneficial for me going forward in the future. And then we can also look at it that, the good times in our lives are actually the ones where we need to be the most careful, because in the good times of our lives, it's the easiest to become lackadaisical. It's the easiest to become lazy. It's easy for us to forget, to lose momentum in our spiritual direction. And so again, I think that the idea of the spiritualist is definitely the one that has the most potency to it. But at the same time, Christ consciousness has got to be the goal, and it can't be achieved. It can't be earned up until one's death, as it's a lifelong process. Christ consciousness is something that's achieved throughout the course of one's whole life. You can't be in Christ consciousness for a week or a month. It's one of those things where I think Christ consciousness, like Christ proved up until the moment where he died on the cross, it was always go time. It was always game time. There was never a day that Christ took off. I mean, according to the biblical story, Christ wasn't out hanging out on the beach with a margarita. Christ was doing the work every single day, morning, afternoon, night, while everyone else was sleeping. I mean, again, this is the real idea when we want to go from this, organic belief that life is not fair. And then maybe that leads us into a place, well, you know what? If there's God, maybe I just don't understand the workings of this world, and maybe I don't see the big picture of things. And so I'll start to accept the good and the bad as it comes and relate it to me just not understanding, and I'll add some faith into that pot. Then we can move ourselves into the idea of karma. We can start to say that whatever's happening to me in my life is my responsibility. It's an effect of something I've done, which again could be relative to reincarnation or reverberation from bad karma or good karma. Then that leads us even further into the thinking of the spiritualist, which is that good and bad are occurring simultaneously, and depending on my perspective, good or bad will be determined by the actual outcome of something, which again is a little bit more elevated. But then we have Christ consciousness, which is that I'm here to do the job that I'm here to do. I'm not here to sit around and party and play games. I am here to bring peace and love and mercy into the world. And whatever sacrifices I need to make in order for that to happen, I'm willing to do that. And that's Christ consciousness.